So today's video I'm going to do a review of the Tracklander roof rack. For those of you who've seen my other videos, you'll know it took me a hell of a long time to get it installed. Was it worth the effort? What do I think of it? So I've had this rack more than a year now. We've done some good long trips, lived out of the vehicle for a couple of weeks in a row several times over the year. So we've really had to load it up and live off it because I don't tow a trailer, so we have to pack carefully and get everything in. Anyway, so here we are. This is the Tracklander TLRAL22FT. It is 2.2 meters long and 1.25 meters wide. It's a flat top, as you can see, totally flat, and it's sitting on top of a Prado 150 2021 model, as if it matters. Anyway, so it is a flat rack, as you can see, no sides to it, nothing, and it is made out of aluminium. So the actual mesh here is aluminium, the whole rack is aluminium, even the wind fairing is aluminium. However, the side rails, which I'll come to in a minute, which fix it to the vehicle, are steel. How much does it weigh? The rack plus the fixing rails plus the wind deflector, you're looking at 29.5 kilos if I add it all up from their website. So that's quite a lot of weight, I hear you say, but out of comparison, if you were to go with the Pioneer, the backbone system on the same vehicle with the same sort of height, include the fixing kit and also purchase extra the wind deflector for the front, so to match it equally, you are looking at 36 kilos for that setup. So this is 6.5 kilos lighter than the Pioneer backbone equivalent. So I guess it's the question of why didn't I go for the Pioneer, because everybody else does. Probably mainly because I like the mesh. I like the hooking ability. I like the flexibility that it gives. Here you can see, for demo purposes, I've hooked on a couple of recovery tracks. But the point really here is that when we load up and travel to a campsite, we can pack it one way. When we're there and we want to go out for the day, I can pack it a different way. And like, I can chuck the recovery tracks just like this in a position that makes them easy to get to, whereas when we're traveling on the long distance to get there, I don't need them easily accessible, so I might pack them somewhere else. So without having the modular system, it does mean that just using these bungees, you know, you can very quickly just hook everything in, hook it in and strap it in and then move it around. Yeah, I get it. It just takes a little bit longer moving stuff around. It does, but it gives me that flexibility, which I really like. Look, each to their own. We all use racks and things in different ways, I guess, and you know, what works for me won't work for some others, and vice versa. So one of the things I did like about it was the fact that it came with the wind deflector. And if you see some of the goings on with roof racks on the internet, people will ask about wind noise. So this was nice that it came automatically with the wind deflector on the front in the kit. So since I've had this on, there really is no wind noise whatsoever. I don't even know the rack is on the roof. And actually, I have to be surprised, even when it's loaded, I find it very quiet. And we do load it up sometimes, try to observe the weight limits, of course. Speaking of weight limits, so again, big chat on the internet about weight limits and loading. So this particular rack, as I said, weighs just under 30 kilos. You've got to look at the specifications for your own vehicle to know what works and what you should and shouldn't do. So with that said, this is 100% off-road rating. So when you buy a roof rack, you've obviously got the roof load rating on your vehicle to look at, and then obviously if you add the roof rack to that, that adds to that load already. So this particular vehicle is 100 kilos roof load rating, but don't take that as same as your vehicle, please look it up. So obviously I've got to add the roof rack to that. That's near enough 30 kilos, so I'm only left with a 70 kilo loading. So I technically can only load 70 kilos on this. But because it's 100% off-load rating, that means that on-road I get the 100 kilos and off-road I get the 100 kilos or 70 in cargo in this particular rack. Now some racks don't give you that full 100% off-road rating, and you need to watch that when you buy a rack to be sure that you get that 100%, because otherwise you might find if it cuts it down, that 70 kilos can become less once you get off-road. So you need to just watch that, and it's very crucial because there have been some incidents of racks coming loose and having issues, and your center of gravity is higher as well, obviously with the extra weight. So taking you around the roof rack really just to show you a bit more what it's like. I love the low profile, probably a bit difficult to see here, but it's a very low profile on the roof. And I'll take you right round to the back and you can really see that it sits very low on the roof with the side rails here. The other thing I like about it, as I said, is full aluminium construction. So even the corners, the whole frame on top is aluminium. So it's really rigid, and you have no flexing at the edges, which I know you do on some racks if they're made out of different materials. And some of the racks have sort of fiberglass plastic reinforced corners or different components. Because this is one piece effectively, obviously welded together, it is very rigid, so you can bolt onto the side without no extra reinforcement, so you don't need any brackets to bolt on the side. If I take you around the other side, you'll see that I've bolted a light straight into the rack itself because it's aluminium. I've also got my awning brackets on this side, and they're just fixed straight into the rack itself. And actually, if I get up there and show you how that's done, so I made my own brackets and just compressed them through the mesh itself. So the mesh is fixed so all the way across the cross pieces. At every touch point it's welded, so it's really secure. There's no rattling, there's no loose mesh, nothing. It's really solid. Because it's aluminium, you can drill it, fix to it. I've used clamping brackets on the, as I said, on the awning brackets on the side, but I didn't need, as I said, any reinforcement other than the clamping brackets to put on there. I've even managed to fix an antenna bracket using another bracket on there that I made up to the side of it. So it's very rigid, and you know, very easy to work with. They do sell accessories and additional pieces for it if you want them, but I tend to make my own and do my own thing. So one of the reasons I went with a flat rack was to get it in the garage. So I was a bit concerned not having side rails, a bit old-fashioned, thinking, well, if I'm only strapping stuff down, do I need the protection of side rails? The answer is not really, no, because at the end of the day, if you strap stuff down properly, it won't move anyway, so you don't actually need the side rails, and it makes it easier obviously for climbing on top of it, as well as, you know, getting in the garage, because if I had the side rails it wouldn't fit in the garage, and that was, as I said, the main reason. So in terms of fitting items to it and moving them around, yes, it is time consuming using the bungees, and I'm sure some of you will say that you know how good I'm using bungees. Well, I always have a double, so you never rely on a single bungee on something, and often if I'm doing long trips or rough roads, I'll put an additional one on. You know, bungees are cheap, there's no harm in putting an extra one on, so if one does snap, then you've always got spare holding it down. I often use ratchet straps as well if I really sort of got anything on there that I want to make sure doesn't move. If I'm doing some long trips or rough roads, if I'm just popping not far, then might not use a ratchet strap, but certainly combination of strapping stuff down, which, to be honest with you, any roof rack you've really got to consider anyway. Other than that, not much to really say about it. You can see we've done a lot of customizations on the side of it, and for those of you who want to know, just before I finish off, the Oricom aerial, this is one of these collapsible brackets where you can put it up or down. Again, I use that obviously to help me get it in the garage, and That's very useful because I don't use the radio all the time. In fact, I only use it when we go away. Then quickly, these brackets I have for the awning, in case anybody wants to know. These are what's called the Brax. They enable me to remove my awning when I'm not using it, which is fantastic actually, because I don't use the awning except when we're going on trips. So you know, week after week I don't use it, which is great, which means I don't carry it around with me. It just clips into these. Look up Brax, that's RACKSBRAX. I might try and put a link to those in the description. They are awesome, one of the best things I bought, because I would hate the idea of carrying around an awning all the time when I hardly ever use it. Anyway, enough said on that. As you can see from the stainless steel bolts that hold the rack together, they all look as new, looking really good. And obviously I check things every now and then where the bolts go together, and I did do a video on fixing it. I actually did 2 videos on fixing it because it was quite a big job. But anyway, there it is. That's the Tracklander roof rack. As I said, been very happy with it. It's been an excellent roof rack. I think if you're considering a mesh type rack, this will give you the rigidity and the ability to keep something on your roof for a long time. Highly recommend it. I said it's one of the options. Most people go for the modular system, so it is something a little bit different. Those are the reasons why I like it, but as I said, very personal the way you use a roof rack. Anyway, hope you found some of this information useful if you're trying to make your mind up what sort of rack to go for. Any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.